Okay, now we're going to look at two more of our modify commands. Well, one in two different applications. We're going to look at array, and we're going to look at two different ways of creating an array. It's a rectangular array and polar array. There's a path array, but today we're only going to look at rectangular array and polar array. And basically what array does, it's a form of copying something. It's just that if you want to make a copy of something, if it's one or two or three different items, it will be a quick way of doing it if we just simply go and copy right here, select it, and make a copy out of it. But what happens if we have to do 100, 500, 5,000 copies of one single item? It's going to take a long time. So we are going to look at rectangular array right here. For example, if I need to make a copy of this object right here, this clone trooper right here, let's say that I needed to fill this part right here. Okay, so I need to make copies to go in this direction and copies to go up and then all the way in this space area right here. So I will have to create many copies. Now I can do that. I can accomplish that by making a copy of one and another one and another one, multiple copies at once, but it will take several steps. What array does, it allows me to create multiple copies in basically one or two clicks. So let's go to our rectangular array option right here. So when I click there, the first thing that my command line says is select object. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so that we can see it. And then I click on this object and I hit enter. So it automatically gives me a sample of what's going to happen right here. So you can see I need to go in this direction. So how am I going to do that without moving the original? Because it says do not move the original object right here. So I have to do something to be able to have these copies go in the opposite direction instead of going, the positive X right here. So we'll see that shortly. But you can tell this going up and down, those are called your columns. Going across are your rows. There's 1, 2, 3 rows right now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Your exercise, okay, on page 15-8 and 15-9 will have information about the measurements that you need to have per each one of the spacings. For example, on this one right here, it says fill the area with clone troopers. Do not move the original. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go and say, okay, I need a number of columns. So I don't know, may need 10 columns and I may need 10 rows. So I type where it says column right here, I type my number of columns that I need, and I type my number of rows that I need, and then I see, oh, but they went on the opposite direction. How am I going to get them on this side? Well, to create that effect, my spacing, not the number of rows or columns that I need, but the distance between the objects. If I'm going to go in the X direction right here, or the Y direction up and down, and my X direction has to be a negative distance so that it can go from the original point to the left, or in the negative X direction. So my columns have to be on the negative spacing. So that puts me there at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 columns, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 rows. Now, is that what you need? You will look at your handout. In this particular case, it says fill the area. So that looks to me like pretty fair. You just have to go and find the actual distance between. It's on your handout. You'll see it's 0.875, 0.875. So you will have to go right here. Okay, and I will go negative, still negative, negative 875, and this is going to be positive, right? 0.875 because it's going on the y direction. And you said, oh, wait a minute, that is going to be too many columns, so I only need 8 because I can see that there's 2 extra ones there. So now have that. If I'm done, I can simply go and say close, and I'm done with that. Now you have other different exercises right here, and it's telling you on your exercise, it will give you the distance between one column to the next column to the next column, and it will give you a distance between the rows, 1 row, 2 rows, 5 rows. So let's do one more, and then you will do the rest. Okay, so I'm gonna go rectangular array here, and I'm gonna do this one right here. So I'm gonna select my object, hit enter, and I can see that it's going positive x, positive y. That's my spacing again, right? The first thing it says 6 rows, 5 columns. So I'm gonna go and say 5 columns right here, and I'm gonna go right here and say 6 rows. Okay, and my spacing for this are going to be, okay, depending on my handout, that you have to do. So you have to go to 15-9 and then find your spacing. But just so that we can have it in the right location, my spacing has to be a negative on the y direction because it needs to go from here down, and my spacing on the x is going to be positive because it's moving from here in that direction. Okay, so you will see your measurements on page 15-9. Once you're done, then you close it. Okay, and then you go and you will complete these other ones right here. So that is rectangular array. You have, if I go and I select this one, you'll see that your area where you're going to modify, it gives you different options. You have columns, you have rows, you have levels right here. We're not going to use levels today, but you have the columns. Right here you have different parts to modify. You have a base point, and you have other settings right here that we can use, but as of right now, we're simply are going to be interested or working on columns, rows, the spacing, whether it's positive or negative, depending on the direction that you're gonna go. Okay, so you go, you follow your instructions to create these other ones right here. Once you are finished, then you will again save it and then send it to me. Okay, alrighty. That's it for the rectangular array.